What's up, guys? It's Agent What If, and I'm following up with two videos in the same week. I know it's uncommon for me, but I just got inspired. So, I just want to make another video. So, without any further ado, let's enter the story. We start off our story incredibly similar to most of my other What Ifs, and even the canon version of My Hero at all. Deku is just a normal child, up until he encounters the slime villain that tried to, do something to Bakugo. Not sure what it was, but he did say he wanted to steal his body, so, hey, not gonna judge. But anyway, after Izuku managed to, with great effort, save Bakugo, and he was then saved by All Might, the events of the story are very similar, the exact same. Except after Izuku was given that piece of All Might's hair, the story takes a turn that nobody was expecting. Izuku's body reacts violently. He falls to the floor and starts coughing up blood. And All Might doesn't know what's wrong because he's never seen anything like this before. He didn't know why Izuku was coughing up blood apparently and was not functioning. So he began to try to rush him to a hospital. We then cut back with Izuku in the hospital. He's getting rushed into the ICU, getting everyone else pushed out of the way because All Might came in carrying him, and when you're with All Might, you get priority. Inko was eventually called, and she comes over and sees Izuku lying unconscious. Nobody quite knows exactly what's going on, all things considered, because Izuku's just regular, and All Might refuses to tell anybody about anything because, he has to keep it a secret. But All Might's secretly scrambling his brain trying to figure out what the problem was. He thinks for days and days. He takes a couple days off hero work to just try to figure out what's wrong with Izuku, how he can fix it, how he can make things right. When he eventually begins to wonder, did Izuku have a quirk already? Izuku couldn't have. He told him he was quirkless. He was like, me. Why would he lie about that? No, he couldn't have known. But why would he react that way? Doesn't make sense. As the thoughts kept on rumbling around in All Might's head, he got a knock at the door. He went to go answer it, and no one was there. All Might then begins to wonder if this day has taken more of an effect on him than he's realized. So, long story, he goes to lay down and begins to go to sleep for the night. When he gets a vision from all of the past users, they seem disgruntled, angry, upset about something. All Might doesn't really know what's going on, but he asks them, and they tell him that they doomed that boy. And he doesn't quite understand what they mean, but they tell him that it's not their job to tell him what he did wrong, but it is his job to fix it. Izuku's been hospitalized for, at this point, a week and a half. The doctors keep trying to fix him, but to their medical knowledge and even quirks, they literally can't find anything wrong with him. The kid's as healthy as he should be for his age. What's wrong with him? Inko asks. And she continues to cry and grab the doctors, but they can't tell her anything because they don't know. They feel ashamed. When the doctor that All For One has on his side, I guess payroll, maybe you could say, since he probably does get paid, but he comes in and he touches the blonde male doctor who's been taking care of Izuku for a while, and tells him with a smile, it's okay, I'll handle it from here on. As the man tries to protest, saying, but doctor, we don't know, the other doctor shushes him and tells him that he'll help as best he can, and if he can't figure anything out, he'll let someone know. The doctor concedes that he can't do anything, so maybe Izuku would fare better with another one, so he leaves. The doctor then begins to introduce himself and speak his name, and Inko then continues laying on the bed, holding Izuku's hand, asking if he can do anything. The doctor then says he intends to find out. Over the course of the next couple of days, the doctor runs some experiments but comes up negative. It seems that Izuku truly doesn't have a quirk, at least not one that he can sense. So he doesn't know what's going on. He intends to tell All For One about this, but before that, he tells Ingo that he's going to leave. Izuku's lying there getting his IV drip when Ingo begins to attempt to cry, but she's out of tears. There's nothing more she can do. Her baby boy is gone. She doesn't know how to react. She's incredibly sad. She holds his hand and tells him that she's here for him and that she'll always be here for him. And there's nothing else that will ever happen. That he'll be okay as long as he tries. She then begins to hold his hand as she slowly lays down on the bed and looks at him and tells him that she loves him. When all of a sudden, nothing. Like, literally nothing. All of a sudden, she doesn't finish her sentence. The noisy hospital becomes as silent as a graveyard. The birds are no longer flying. The sun's rays aren't traveling through the windows anymore. What's going on? And as quickly as he realizes that what appears to have happened, he realizes he's awake. Izuku looks at his mother as he begins to hug her and say how scared he was and how thought he'd never see her again. But she doesn't react. In fact, she can't even move. Izuku physically can't get her to move. He manages to get his arm out of her grasp, but just barely. And he wonders what's going on. As Izuku in his medical gown begins to pace in the room, freaking out, not knowing what's going on, he eventually, after freaking out for a good 15 minutes, begins to realize something's changed. And he doesn't know what it is, but he needs to figure this out. So he grabs his IV, that's, the movable version. I forget what those are called. And he begins to walk throughout the hospital. He sees countless people frozen in motion, not moving. It doesn't seem like they're breathing, blinking, or their hearts are even beating. They're just frozen. Everything stopped. But Izuku's still going. As Izuku continues, he begins to travel more and more throughout the hospital. Then we cut to 10 days later. It's been 10 days and nothing's happened. Or at least Izuku thinks it's been 10 days. He doesn't know how to perceive time anymore. Nothing's moved. He's not getting hungry. He's not getting thirsty. He's the exact same. Izuku begins to write down everything he observes as closely as he can, trying to figure out what caused this and what he can do to stop it. Izuku spends the rest of his day writing down anything and everything he sees, keeping a journal. Then it's been 40 days. 30 days later, Izuku's gotten used to his situation. Everything stopped and it's frozen, and Izuku can't cope. He spent the last 5 days crying by his mother's bedside, thinking that he's stuck in a world by himself. He doesn't understand why this happened or why it won't stop. But after those 5 days, Izuku made a choice. He decided he was going to leave the hospital. He grabbed a change of clothes and he left. Over those 5 days, he noticed that certain things that make contact with him for incredibly long portions of time, are unfrozen. Using that, he went to where this hospital keeps clothes that are left in the hospital by patients or visitors or even doctors, and he changes his clothes and he walks out. He notices that the day that it was frozen on, or the night, or whatever time is anymore, is frozen. The rain, it was raining, pouring, but not a single drop has touched the ground in what he believes to be forever. He begins to walk down the streets as he sees cars, people in the middle of talking, running, trying to get out of the rain, schoolgirls giggling after they just got home from school. But he's the only one moving, the only one breathing, the only one alive. We then cut to 150 days after the event. Izuku's still wandering. But in this time, he's grown more used to his surroundings and he's learned things. Izuku quickly began to realize that the time he spent in here may be very long, but it's also very boring, so he wished to find something entertaining. He began to read as many books as he could get his hands on and actually spent a number of days in the library just reading books until he combed through just about everything in there, making him at least adequate in just about 70 different types of medicine. He became a doctor, he joked to himself. A lifeless chuckle, not a true laugh, just something to remind him that his face could move. It was soulless. Even he didn't feel any mirth in it, and he knew that if anyone else could hear it, they would have thought the same. He continued his trek as he learned and learned and learned languages, read books, made books. Izuku traveled around Japan, just wandering, aimlessly. He didn't know when this would stop or if it would stop, but he was beginning to lose himself. It's been 400 days, and Izuku's still wandering. He began to ponder if he'd ever stop walking, if he'd ever learn what this all meant, why it all happened. It's been the same rainy day for however long it's been. Izuku's picked up even more skills. He's become accustomed to many fighting styles, proficient in every martial art and weapon that's ever been made. He's had the time. But it's all soulless. Izuku clung on to wanting to be a hero for a while. For a while there, he thought maybe he could learn something that would help him when he became a hero after this ended. But he soon realized that was just a false dream he gave himself to keep going. He's noticed that he's been slowly losing his mind. He's beginning to hear things that he normally wouldn't, see things that he normally wouldn't. He begins to grow further and further alarmed at his situation. But at this stage, why care? What's going to happen if he goes a little crazier than he already is? The day has been dreary and wet for a long, long time. 800 days. At this point, Izuku's evolved beyond his wandering stage, beyond his emo phase, and just about everything else. He's been in here for a very long time. And his somber mood has grown less somber, but definitely nowhere near as hearty as it once was. He's grown less timid, had conversations with people who he perceived to be there. At this point, Izuku finds it funny the roster he's built, seeing as he's talking to people who have no mouths, and for some reason they all have different colors. Izuku just thinks his mind is trying to fill in the gaps of the loneliness he feels, but when they started talking back, he knew he was done. Now he spends his days in an abandoned cabin in the woods off the coast of Alaska. It's not cold, it's not hot, it's not anything. Izuku walks outside into the snow to greet what looks to be some kind of animal, maybe a wolf, maybe a fox. But it's been frozen there. He gave it a name, Timothy. He doesn't know why. That's just what he decided to name it. He says hi to him every time he walks through the open door. He sees the man the cabin obviously belonged to going to chop wood. He named him Frank, tells Frank hi, and continues his aimless travel back to Japan. Doesn't know why he went back. Maybe some sense of familiarity. Maybe it's all just become too much. But he stopped seeing the people and he stopped hearing the voices. And at a certain point, Izuku began to wonder if there was something beyond crazy. Because when crazy became sane, what was it? Because it couldn't be regular sane. Because if becoming sane meant that you were no longer crazy, but you were never crazy, then what did you become? Izuku chuckles at his own conundrum, chuckles at everything, But not a lifeless chuckle like before, an actual laugh, an actual joyful expression of feeling. This world may have frozen for him, but some things never change. As he walks across the ocean that no longer moves or ripples, he continues passing by boats, airplanes, people fishing in different villages and areas of the world. Izuku's learned a lot, more than he could ever feel he ever should. But he can't lie. It was interesting. Izuku doesn't know why he feels like he's coming to the end of his story, but he knows that something may come. He goes back to the hospital, the one he's been to that hasn't been to in for so long. He walks in the door and he notices just how many people were truly in here that day, or this day. Still confuses him how time works. He begins to see his mother as he leans on the door. He walks in and says hi to her. "Hi, Mom. How's it been? You haven't aged a day." That one was bad, even for me. I don't think there's anything left to do. So I came back. I know, right? Pathetic. I've seen the entire world, learned more than any one person could possibly know. But I chose to come back to the one place with the most limited amount of information. I know, it doesn't make sense. But if you could, I'd really love it if you'd unfreeze with the rest of the world. Because I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. The days, the day has been so very long, and I'm tired. He kisses his mother on the forehead as he begins to sit on the bed. When all of a sudden the voices return, he laughs, saying that they were back, that they had gone away. Was their vacation good? They respond with humor in the sense of danger is a good way to distract yourself from the problem. Izuku then wonders if his consciousness is lecturing him and how that could even happen. But beyond this, the man turns to him and asks him a question. Izuku says, "What?" And the man asks, well, one question, one simple one. An easy answer, really. Why did he do it? Why did who do what? The man doesn't answer. Izuku turns to him and asks again, why did he do what? The man still doesn't reply, but looks at him intently and answers, did he make you suffer? And he snaps his fingers, and now it's no longer still. The billions of droplets that have been held in the air for the past 800 days have finally touched the ground. His mother's face has finally laid down on the bed she so desperately wanted to sleep on because of her condition and how tired she was. Her tears finally made it to the blanket. The doctors finally reached the patient he was running for. The schoolgirls finally made it home to talk. The door finally opens all the way. Izuku cries. He begins to bawl, seeing how everything has begun to progress again. His mother hears this and thinks she's going crazy until he rushes her and they both fall over on the ground as he hugs her, crying, telling her how long it's been, telling her he loves her. She then realizes she isn't joking, she isn't dreaming or having a mental breakdown, and she hugs him back and screams at the top of her lungs that she loves him. The doctors rush in and see Izuku awake, and they all smile, thinking that whatever happened worked out well. They begin to question how exactly he woke up and changed clothes, but no one's really worried about it, especially in a world where people can grow tails, turn into bird people and other things. They just assumed it was his quirk, and they were correct. After a few days, Izuku is released from the hospital for observation. He walks, but unlike usual, Inko doesn't have to walk in front. This Izuku's assertive. He walks with his head held up, with a bright smile on his face, with knowledge, with experience. He walks through the city and maneuvers like there's no one in his way. He turns around and talks to her periodically, and still, he's moving around people and around everyone at she can't even form words. Izuku's changed so much. He said so little but changed so much. He's avoiding things now. He moves through the streets knowing exactly where he's going and how long it'll take. His estimations are exactly on the spot, not a singular second off. Inko wonders what if his quirk required him to go in some kind of comatose state. But she refrains from asking because she doesn't want to pressure him into answering. She just wants to enjoy the moment. At this exact moment, All Might was about to lay his head down when the world stopped. But when it started again, he jolted up. He looked around furiously, wondering what had changed, what had happened, that something had. He sees those same past users, and they ask him, "Did you know?" And they disappear. Over the next few days, Izuku continues his training as he normally would have to go to UA, since at this point he just wants to experience anything. Except this time he doesn't really need to train. He's already done most of the things he needs to do. He does still do physical exercise, but at this point, he's just doing it out of habit, not out of new knowledge. And he easily builds the physique, the physique that he would have had in the series much quicker because he knows how to train better, maximize sleep, rest, recovery, newbie gains, everything. He's a prodigy at this. Izuku walks to his entrance exam with confidence, with assertiveness. But before we get into that, let's quickly go over Izuku's quirk from his journal. Over the hundreds of days Izuku had been frozen in place, he had observed many things about his quirk. Like, for example, when Izuku touches something after time is frozen for a long enough period of time, specifically 5 to 10 minutes of straight contact, that thing becomes unfrozen. Also, Izuku found out after he escaped the loop that he could definitely freeze time on command, but for some reason his powers had massively dropped off. He went from being able to freeze the entire world for 1 day to barely being able to slow down time for 5 seconds. He can no longer stop time at all, but he can slow time down almost indefinitely, but it only lasts for 5 seconds. Or however long. Izuku can't really tell time when time is stopped. Also, a common thing, like in JoJo, if the characters can only freeze time for 3 seconds but time is frozen, isn't that still infinite time? But that's a side question. Izuku figures out his quirk and quickly realizes how powerful it is, and he aspires to be the best hero he can possibly be. At UA, of course. But with that being said, I think we're going to end this episode. If you guys enjoyed this and want to see another one, please let me know in the comments below, or like and subscribe if you want to, because, we ask here, and asking is way better than demanding. And also, you get more results that way. Long story short,